Thanks so much for joining me today. My name is Carter, and I want to introduce you to Paranormal Nation. If you are like me, you can't get enough scary and spooky stories. Ever since we were young, myself and my brother Chris loved scary stories. They have always been a way for us to escape for a little while. In the past 5 years or so, we have created numerous stories that we hope you enjoy. This story that you are about to listen to is one of my original creations. Without further ado, let's get spooky. I have always been an avid hiker. My desire to get out into the woods and hike a trail or blaze my own trail has been a passion of mine ever since I can remember. For me, it was nothing to go on a 10 or 12-mile jaunt into the woods for some relaxation and just to be in nature. Now, things have changed after experiencing what I could only explain as the Witch of the Woods. It has changed my life forever, and I want to share this story as a warning. I made it out alive, but forever changed. This is my story. 2013 was going to be a great year. I was able to take a few weeks off from work in March, and I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I had found several trails that I had never explored 20 miles away from where I live. Being in the Appalachian Mountains of Virginia, I had the privilege of being close to nature hikes anytime I wanted. My normal preparation was to include everything I would need for a 3-day escape to the woods, including plenty of water, food, and of course my cameras and first aid. I had packed my favorite sleeping setup and was ready to go. The only difference was that this time I was going somewhere I had never gone before. I felt that I wanted to test myself. My time off is more limited than before, and I cherish every bit of time I get to enjoy what I love to do. My experiences have always been positive, and this time shouldn't be any different, or so I thought. I arrived at the trailhead with great anticipation. The weather was partly cloudy with a chance of showers and storms. I had no issue with the rain, but the storms could be interesting. I had about 2 miles in, and I was absolutely blessed with beautiful ferns and wildflowers that seemed premature for this time of year, but hey, I will take it. I got to a small creek about 3 miles up the trail, and it seemed that the feeling in the air changed almost immediately. I had been used to some wonderful aromas of the flowers and greenery for several miles, and then suddenly a foul stench came up from nowhere. As soon as I got to that creek, which oddly enough was not on the topographical map, it just hit me. Without a doubt, something was dead. That itself was not that unusual, but this was different. This smell was more than that. I crossed the creek and kept following a faint trail as I hit the 5-mile mark. The smell was still there, just not as strong. I could not shake the feeling I was being watched by this point. I have felt that way before, but this was not an area I was used to. The temperature had dropped almost instantly. It felt like a 10-degree difference in just a few hundred feet. Then I heard the rumble of thunder. The storm came up so fast I had little time to react. I made my way to a big spruce tree and waited for a few minutes. That's when I noticed something strange. About 50 or so yards in front of me, someone was standing in the middle of a storm on what appeared to be an old logging road that I had not noticed before. I had come from that general direction and never saw another road. As I stood up to get their attention, I could tell it was an older woman in a long black robe. I walked forward after she didn't respond to my waving or my hollering, and that is when things took a bad turn. The rain was now harder than before. The darkness of the cloud cover was growing. The thunder rumbled louder, and several flashes of lightning created an ominous feeling. I have never been scared in the woods. I considered it my home away from home. But this was different. I took a few more steps in her direction, and she lunged forward at me with a single leap. Within a matter of seconds, what was 50 yards quickly turned into 15 yards. I had an overwhelming feeling of fear upon me like never before. My palms began to sweat, and my breathing became very heavy. I yelled at her, "Stay away," but that didn't stop her. The closer she got, the nastier she looked, with her long, pale white face and yellow teeth chattering and biting. I noticed her beady black eyes and wrinkled, leathery skin that looked as thin as paper. Her robe was torn and tattered with sticks and twigs tangled along the edges. Her long silver hair was matted and unkempt. I had found the source of the smell. It was the putrid and disgusting aroma of death. That's when I realized this person in front of me was in no way alive. How can this be? That was my only thought as she got closer and the putrid smell grew stronger. Instinct kicked in, and it was definitely time to leave. As I turned to run, she grabbed my shoulder with her long, bony fingers. Her blood-covered nails gripped my shirt. In my panic, I fell to the ground. "Get up." I yelled to myself. I made it to my feet as quickly as I could. and took off. I felt like my life was in danger as I ran as quickly as I could. The sky was getting darker and the rain was harder than ever. I tripped over a dead tree and fell with a thud. She was right behind me. I scrambled back to my feet, and I realized it was time to confront her. I couldn't outrun her. She was on my heels all the way. I screamed at her, "Get away from me." She laughed and began to chatter again. I felt sick to my stomach almost immediately and began to vomit. What was happening to me? I doubled over in pain, sweating profusely as I could not control my sickness. Had she put a spell on me? The fear was overwhelming. I questioned whether I was going to make it out of there alive. I looked up and suddenly she was gone. The smell was gone. There were no remnants of her even being there. I stood to my feet, still feeling sick but manageable. I took off to the truck. The storm was lifting and the dreadful feeling was almost gone. I had made it out alive. It was the most unbelievable experience ever. How could this have happened? How was this possible? To this day, I cringe when I get close to that trailhead. And I hardly hike anymore, and I never hike alone. Thank you so much for listening to my newest creepy short story. I hope that you would consider liking and subscribing to the channel. Your support means a lot to me, and I appreciate it greatly. I also wanted to let you know that I have brand new merchandise in my store. I will leave a link in the description. If you have any ideas for new spooky stories that you would like to hear, leave me a message in the comments, and I will do my best to create that for you. That's all for this time, and as always, keep staying spooky.